Okay, so I watched a cool video from David talking about tacit approval and compassion and the difference between the two. And then I watched Tyler's video talking about it, just kind of a response to it. I thought this was a really cool concept for me to talk about. Can you stand on me? You can sit right here. You want to sit? Because I'm kind of deep in the parenting process, in the sense that what I mean by that is when you become a parent, a lot of the programming comes up for you to now program your child. So a lot of the things that you would imprint onto a child to create the behaviors that you then have as an adult, that stuff comes up within a parent to do to their child. So for me, it's becoming aware of a lot of that stuff that's coming up. And one of the things that I can very clearly see is the creation of tacit approval. Where that comes from, it absolutely comes from your parents, and they're not necessarily doing it consciously. What's up?
Look, what are they counting to?
Right now it's at 1 minute and 23 seconds, 24. See? It's counting the seconds. It'll go up to 60, and then it'll count as another minute because there's 60 seconds in 1 minute.
Okay, let's.
So it doesn't just count up to 1,000 seconds. It counts
Okay,
hours, minutes, and seconds.
Okay, let's wait till it count to 6.
Okay, you watch it, okay? So tacit approval is born from this point within a parent of wanting to just control, and again, none of this is conscious necessarily. Bug. Yes, that is a bug.
I know.
That looks like a cicada bug, Senny. Cicada bug? Wanting to control your child's behavior.
Look, that's a toy.
Again, not conscious, just a program that runs of like, I am the authority. You need to do what I say, and you only need to speak when spoken to, and you should just accept everything that I say. And so for a child going through that, a child isn't born naturally with this point of just agreeing with everything you say. And any parent knows this, right? But we grow this point within children of a survival mechanism of learning, and they learn this to just shut up and accept what their parent is telling them, because over and over again as parents we will tell our kids to shut up and just do what we're saying, or you should just accept what I'm saying, and we do it in very subtle ways. Even the nicest parents will do this. And I have to really, I'm saying this because I am actively walking through a process of supporting myself to become very aware of this point coming up for me, and make sure that I don't even allow it in the most subtle forms with Max and Seneca, with my kids. So, and again, it's so subtle as a parent, but this is where it's born from. I mean, think about it. It's like, if your kid is disagreeing with you on something, or is trying to figure out how things work, because we forget as adults that kids don't understand. Are you bringing all your toys out? You can bring this. What else you got? What is it, a carabiner? That's actually not really a carabiner. What is that? It's like a rock climbing tool to allow you to swivel. We have carabiners too, though. Do you know where they are? It's for rock climbing. I'll show you a video of rock climbing today. That way you can see. But
maybe it's also for climbing trees.
Yes, sure. You could use it for climbing trees.
I want to climb trees.
You want to? You could climb that little tree over there by the swing set. It's small enough where you could practice on it. That crepe myrtle.
And then, if I know how to do that, I could practice climbing that way.
Wow, that would be really tall. You'd be up really high if you climbed the pine trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to do.
Okay.
But I tell you to come up.
Maybe you would need a carabiner though
Why?
to hook your ropes to. 'Cause you might. I'll show you a video too, so you can see what rock climbing is all about, or climbing trees. We can look up videos of that today. That'd be fine. Yes.
Climb rock climbing and climbing.
Okay, that's fine.
And climb.
You can do all those things. We can practice.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I'm gonna continue talking on this video. Yes.
And sunflowers, because we'll be able to pick the sunflowers and fall down and then eat the seeds inside.
That makes sense. We'd probably use a ladder though, because the sunflowers wouldn't be able to handle your weight. They would just fall over. But if we put a ladder next to them, we could climb up and look at the big head of the big sunflower head, and then look at the seeds too. And then when they're ready, we'll pick them. That's right. We would roast them and eat them. We'll see if we get any this year, though.
And then we'll cook the muffin.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep talking on this video.
We'll eat them for dinner.
Okay. It's more like a snack, but maybe we could find a recipe for dinner. I'll look it up. I'll find something.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
Can you come closer? What'd you say?
How do you do it for this?
Oh, we would tie a rope to it. We'll have to find a rope. But remember I was telling you earlier that I'm gonna make this video. So I'll finish it up.
Why the green one on the blue one?
I don't know. Probably to differentiate up and down. I'm not sure. So you don't get confused. See, because kids need things explained to them like this. Like they need to have someone with them who can have a conversations about lots of things. And if you've seen my other videos that I've done, you can see how extensive that is. Like they need someone there to support and guide them through what they're investigating in our world, because they don't know anything. So a lot of times as parents, we haven't developed or have been supported to develop any sort of patience to be able to do that properly. Like we haven't been taught that from our own parents. Our own parents taught us impatience, and they taught us, and when you don't have patience, you will automatically switch into trying to control the behavior of the people around you. So this is where tacit approval is born from, because think about it. For Max, for example, here, if I was just telling him the whole time in that exchange just now that, hey, stop talking, like I'm trying to do something right now, I need you to just stop. Which, I mean, you have to be honest, like if you're a parent, do you ever switch into that of just like, hey, I'm trying to control, I just need you to just stop and go away because I'm trying to do something. Instead of guiding and supporting and communicating and having a conversation about things and developing that patience within that. Because, I mean, just because our parents didn't teach us patience, that's not an excuse for us then to copy that pattern onto our children, through which he will learn from me that he needs to just accept what I'm saying because I'm not going to explain it to him. Like that's where tacit approval comes from, because you learn this survival mechanism of I need to just be quiet and quell the points within myself of wanting to understand what another person is saying and wanting them to explain more and more and more. And also learning that if I were to question things, there's so many moments in a child's life where if they question things, they just get yelled at or they get a nasty look from their parents. Like again, the nicest parents will do this pattern, not even really considering themselves fully. So you may not hit your kids or yell at them, which are two things that are totally unacceptable, but you might still, give your kid a nasty look if they are asking you a question when you're trying to focus on something else. And that becomes over time a need to control the majority of their behavior. So you'll see this in parents where, they're out. If you're out and you see parents like just constantly nagging their children and trying to correct every little behavior that's happening, that comes over as an accumulation. It's a compounding over time of not explaining what's really going on in their world and really being patient with your child. And again, then a child just learns to shut up. And if they want the people who are going to be taking care of them to accept them and really continue feeding them and all this kinds of, I know it seems like, oh, that's not what's really going on. But at a deep level, at a deep survival level, that's really actually what's going on. Like a child has to, in a certain sense, please their parents in order to ensure their own survival. This is at a deep-rooted level. Like you need to please the people around you in order to get something. Or you learn it to act in spite of that, right? You learn that no one else around you is going to help you. So then you start developing behaviors to just elicit emotional responses from the people around you instead, right? It's sort of like an animal that's been, beaten over and over again when they lash out or when they start acting aggressively. That's kind of what happens with a lot of kids, especially from environments where the parent is not at all explaining what's going on in their world, right?
Stop.
Yeah, what's up?
Because if you have a stove, I guess.
If you have a stove?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I'm just telling you. Mama.
What about a stove, though? What are you saying?
I was saying that cooks, but never ever.
Yeah, stoves do cook things. That's right. So tacit approval is really coming from that need to survive at a young age. And you learn that in your home. You learn it especially in school. Yes? I mean, if you've read Lord of the Flies, like that is the environment of school. Can you eat soup? Oh, like from a stove? Hi. Yeah. You learn this point of just being quiet and accepting authority and keeping everything in your own mind. And again, I like what Tyler was saying in terms of like you're not really caring about the people around you when you give tacit approval. That is very true. And you learn that from your parents who, in those moments of just trying to control behavior, you're really only actually considering yourself as a parent. You're not truly fundamentally considering your child and what they're going through.
I like to plant celery.
Celery? I've never planted celery before. But you know what? We could do that. We have pots. We don't have room in the garden right now, but we could plant in pots. I don't know. Let's look it up and find out if celery can grow in pots. I'm sure it can. Our neighbor's mowing their lawn. What's that noise? But hi. Sunny's trying to ride Max's bike right now. She's practicing. So that's where that's born from. And so if you're wondering where that comes from, it's not easy to change. Like it's not so simple as just thinking about it and and supporting yourself to that's a big pot. That'll work, I think. You really have to dig into how you learned it, where you learned it from, and become more aware of how extensively you do it, because you will participate in tacit approval in every relationship that you have, and even the relationship with yourself. Like you will constantly give yourself tacit approval and just accept the things about yourself that you know are bullshit, that you know are not supportive for you, or that you know that are actually harming yourself. because again, you develop a level of identity of yourself, and that is how you survive in this world and within yourself. And so when you start to question that, it can be kind of painful in a certain sense, because you have to change, right? And change is not something that is particularly comfortable. It actually can be quite painful. So anyways, I just wanted to quickly just talk about, like, this is where tacit approval comes from. It's not something that you're necessarily consciously doing. You have developed it as a survival mechanism and a coping mechanism from when you were very young. And you learned it from your parents, and parents will copy this onto their children. And even the most self-aware parents will find themselves doing this. And it really takes supporting yourself to become more aware of your own thinking and your own patterns of behavior and your own programming. Because again, when you become a parent, you can have the best intentions, the intention, but if you do not support yourself to deal with the patterns that you were programmed with that will activate in a moment when you're a parent, and then you just accept it, tacit approval of the pattern of the program, and you just start doing it to your kids because you don't know how to act any better. You don't know a different way of behaving because you just learned it from your parents. And in parenting, a lot of times, if you're not actively supporting yourself to change your own programming, you're sort of in panic chaos mode, where you're just going day by day, just trying to do the very best and managing everything, and not really looking at, like, okay, what am I actually saying to my children? What am I doing to them? How are they just absorbing this within themselves and then creating their patterns of behavior based on what I'm doing? Because they learn all their behaviors from us. Like, it's not, children are not this set of behaviors born this way. Like, they're not born with just a certain set of behaviors and now existing as that. We create that within them. So your tacit approval you got from your parents. Doesn't mean you need to be mad at them, because they weren't aware at all that they were doing it to you. And they might have felt guilt and shame after they did it, right? When they would then see how you just accept the world around you and you're not challenging things. Or they might have moments where they have that and they can see that. And I think a lot of parents do, feel that guilt and shame when they see their child doing something that they know that they programmed that in, but then they haven't really taken the time, because it does take a lot of time and awareness and focus. Yes? Huh? That's not a hoe, though. What is that? Yeah. So that's just a shovel. Are you looking for a hoe? Where's the hoe? It's over there. At the other garden. At the other section. So what can parents do? What can you do, right? You can start becoming more aware of that programming within yourself. And you can basically pretty much assume that programming is there, because we all do it. And you may think you call people out when they're saying bullshit, but would you do that to your spouse? Would you do that to your own parents? Where are the points where do you do it to yourself? Do you call out all of your own bullshit? And so the more we can do that for ourselves, and that's why I highly recommend doing the Destiny Eye process, because that has been huge for me in terms of supporting myself to become more aware of my own thoughts and my own feelings and my own emotions. Because that whole, and I've talked about this in other videos, but that whole cycle of participating in a thought of, for example, let's look at this point of the controlling my child's behavior. I'll give you a good example of this point where I was walking through having this point within myself of wanting to just control his behavior. Max, for example. I'm using Max as an example because he's at that level of communicating where he could disagree with me, right? And so that's kind of that point at which you would start verbally controlling a child's behavior. And again, where they start to learn tacit approval. He's 3.5. So we were doing some baking, and I was doing something in baking that I had never done before. I've never made sourdough bread. So I was just reading about the process, trying to learn everything, trying to investigate everything, doing something new for myself the first time. And he wanted to help me. So he was up on his stool and was like, we were measuring out the flour, and he was using the scale for the first time. And he didn't know physically how he was, I could see he was still learning how to like take a spoon, put it in the flour, and then dump it precisely into the container so that it didn't just land all over the scale. And since we were trying to do something which required us to measure a little bit more precisely than some of the other things we've done in baking, I could see within myself the thought of,
Look, beautiful flower.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
See?
I sure I found it.
Did you find a whole bunch of them?
Yeah. Look over there.
Oh, I see them.
Could I go get them?
Well, I will. I'm going to be done with this video pretty soon. Okay, I just was finishing this specific point.
Wait, here's a fun that you can hold while you're doing the video.
Thank you.
No.
Should I put it in my hair
Yeah.
so we can see it like that?
Basically, that should be what our idea.
Okay, there. Looks good. You can get more if you want, or
Okay.
whatever else you want to do. I'm almost done. Okay, so I could see myself wanting to control the behavior, and the thought came up of he's gonna make a mess, right? And then a thought of another thought came up of we're gonna make a mistake. Actually, that was the first one. We're gonna make a mistake with making this bread because we're not being very precise. And then also a feeling came up within that of like, like kind of a negative feeling. And then like an image popped up of like, making the bread and it not working out because we weren't precise enough. And then also the point of making a mess. And again, this is how it works. You have a thought, and then you have all these these other thoughts that come along with it. If you accept that initial thought, right, which I did in that moment, and I'm still going through a process, right? All these things are very subtle. So
Yeah, I want to put this in my hair.
in your hair, okay. Let me see if I can get it to stay. Oh, there we go. Looks good. Nice.
Okay.
And so it's very subtle.
Say guys.
What's up?
Say guys. Listen to that.
Okay. So I had to check that, and I could see it coming up. But the point I was making.
Look at all.
The point I was making was that why I would recommend Destiny,
Look, and let's check.
and also finding out what we're doing in TechnoTutor, is because it's all of this, the thoughts, participating in all these compounding thoughts, all these collective thoughts, and then getting that nasty feeling within yourself of anger or frustration and all this stuff, or just that irritation that comes up, and then the anger that comes with that. Then what'll happen is you'll do something, you'll act out of that anger, like trying to stop him from doing what he's doing, or grabbing him, or something like that would come from that. So for me, it's like becoming aware of that process before it becomes an action, and ideally getting to the point where not participating in the initial thought at all of like, we're going to make a mistake because of him or something. So instead, supporting and guiding him to be here in our world. And also, what's up?
Flower.
And because I know, so that's why I'd recommend doing Destiny, finding out what we're doing in TechnoTutor, because all of that is supporting ourselves to become more aware of how this pattern happens, of where we get to the point of then doing something to harm our child or just programming them with tacit approval. Something that I've also done, because I know that I'm still in a process of becoming aware of this stuff, and changing that within myself. I've supported Max, and I'll support Seneca as well, as she's becoming more and more verbal and aware of what's going on around her. I've supported Max
You put this one in your...
to understand what it looks like to be frustrated, or to understand that if you see someone doing something that's not best or that's harmful. What's up? You want me to put it in me, or you want me to put it on you?
No, you. So you have 2 flowers, so everyone can know.
Everyone can know that we have 2 flowers. We have our neighbor's tree is dropping all these flowers on our lawn. It's springtime now. So what I've supported Max with is supporting him to call me out on my own bullshit. So ideally he wouldn't have to do that, but it's cool to teach kids that, because they're going to have to do that in their world. Ideally he wouldn't have to do it with me, but I'm still walking through a process. I understand that I still make mistakes. I understand that I still react in moments. So I want to support him to understand that he can question me, and he can challenge me, and he can, so that he can also understand that I make mistakes, and why. We talk about why I make mistakes, and what's going on within me in those moments, and what I can do to support myself. So that way, when he goes out into his world and interacts with people who are also going through all these reactions and emotional things and trying to control each other's behavior. This one's brown, and it's dry. You feel it? It's very dry. It doesn't have a lot of water in it. This one has more, and the green ones have a lot more. See, this is the color that it turns before it turns into that color. This leaf's been on the ground for a long time. Yeah, the yellow one is kind of one that is dying, which is okay. That's part of the plant's process in the springtime, is to drop a lot of those leaves. So that's normal. So anyways, supporting him to understand that he can do that with me. And that way he can do it with other people too. That way he doesn't learn tacit approval. And yeah. So anyways, I'll just end it there, because that's about the amount of time that's good for them to not have my full attention. But anyways, I highly recommend everybody start investigating this for yourself, because especially if you're planning on having children, or you're thinking you're young enough where you might, because you don't want to just copy this onto your kids, but also do it for yourself, because you don't want to just accept things within yourself and within other people that are not best, because that's how we create a world where we're all just tacitly approving of our economic system that doesn't support everyone effectively. And we're just accepting the debt system and everything that is not best about our world, which we think we can't do anything about. That is tacit approval, right? It's just that acceptance that you don't have any direction or control over your world. And again, it's about control. You learn that you can't control your world as you're a child. You can't control your parents. You can't control what they do. You just need to shush and be quiet and listen and do what they say in order to be able to get food. Like, again, it's a very animalistic point within ourselves that is very challenging to then transcend as you become an adult or become aware of. Very difficult to become aware of. So we have to support ourselves to start directing our world, instead of just thinking we don't have control and then making it about there's those who control our world, and then there's those of us that can't control anything, instead of us all just directing what's really going on in our world through challenging each other, on a level where it's not just you're just going out and challenging everyone else. You have to challenge this point within yourself. You have to challenge how you developed these behaviors and actions, or behaviors that then become actions. Hey, I'm gonna stand up. He took his clothes off. But yeah, so anyways, that's all I want to say about tacit approval for now. But I think it's really great you guys talking about this point. It's very supportive. So I just wanted to show you as an insider, like where you get this from. You definitely get it from your parents. It's not a point of blame. It's just the reality of the way that you're programmed. You get all of this stuff and it's set in stone basically by the time you're, 5. So get it, start becoming aware of yourself now. If you're a parent, start changing these points now, where you're aware of how you developed it within your childhood, and then also how you're doing it to your children. And instead of trying to control their behavior, start developing this point within yourself where you're constantly explaining things to them, and you're changing this point within yourself where you're just trying to control. So anyways, talk to you guys later. Bye.